7:01. So this is our regular meeting of council held for Tuesday, August 27th at 7 p.m. For those in attendance here in the building and online, be aware our meetings are recorded for public viewing and placed on a publicly available website. There is a meeting link in the agenda if you have a copy of it. If you would like a copy of it, there's one at the front desk. So meetings called to order. I would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded First Nations land of Ihatisat Chinnikit territory. If I could get somebody to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis and Janice. Additions, deletions, anything of that sort? Not looking, staff's not seeing anything, neither is anybody on council. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
And
to
seeing
adopt
none
the minutes of the July
Carried.
23rd, 2024 council meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis and Janice. Errors, omissions, did you see anything that you needed to be brought to light? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seeing none opposed, that's carried. Next we have Sarah Wiley, Manager of Solid Waste Planning and Policy Development for the Comox Waste Management. They're talking about the renewal of the Comox Waste Management Plan. I also see that we have Vivian Shaw online. So if you'd like to come up, you're more than welcome to use the mouse to forward your presentation. And thank you so much for being here in person and Vivian being online. I'm just going to do a quick check and make sure that council can see the presentation.
Can see it.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And feel free whenever you're ready. Thanks for coming.
So as mentioned, I'm Sarah Wiley with a really long title that's around solid waste. So we're based out of the Comox Valley, but our service area includes the far reaches of Zeballos and Seward and also Quadra Cortez and then Hornby and Denman as well. So we have a lot of facilities and of course locally we've got the landfill here in Zeballos that's used by the village as well as the neighboring nations and the private sector. And then as well, we run the small depot and contract with the operator there. And so we've got, yeah, we're doing a 10-year plan and you know, every community is unique. So we wanted to come in and meet with the communities and just sort of update you on this plan as it's quite comprehensive.
Can I interrupt for one
Yeah.
minute? If council has any questions, should they interrupt or would you like for them to wait to the end?
I think if they don't mind shouting out, that's fine.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And just a reminder to gallery, this is a council presentation, so questions will go through council at the end of the meeting if there's any here. And if you've decided to stay for the duration. Thanks for that.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got, what is the solid waste management plan? It's a 10-year plan, 2000 to 2020. You can see there's been some big changes in what we have in terms of the cost and also the volume of materials. And so that was a bit of a wake-up call for us when we last did our plan in 2012, was recognizing the considerable capital expenses that we were going to incur in order to close landfills properly and meet our regulatory requirements and open a new line landfill to meet those regulatory requirements. And we just hadn't put enough money aside to do that. So that was submitted in 2012, approved in 2013. And that was the big increase in the tip fee there. Now that's not the same tip fee that you pay here, but that when we close the landfill in Zeballos, that will be the tip fee that is charged back to the village for the waste that's coming to us. So it's currently at $155 per ton in 2020. So this is kind of our moment in time in order to lift our heads up and, you know, take a moment outside of our operational day-to-day needs, which are very demanding. We're a facility, the Cumberland facility is our own facility that we operate, and it's every day of the year except for staff holidays. So it's quite busy. They get between 300 and 500 customers a day just through the scales, and then through the recycling area, as many or more. So we've seen population growth in our communities, and that's been driving, we see redevelopment, we see people coming in with money, doing renovations, doing tear downs. We see, lots of single family homes needing to be replaced with multifamily to support housing needs. So we're definitely seeing an increase in garbage, but also in recycling as people participate more. So we need to adapt our old plan to address these changes. And it's a requirement from the province that we maintain these plans and keep them up to date. They have a target goal for us of 350 kilograms per person. Our region is at around 551 kilograms per person. Now that's not bad, actually. That's in the top third, middle of the pack, but it still could come down a bit. The big overachievers are the regional district of Nanaimo and Cowichan Regional District, Cowichan Valley. And they've got some unique systems. So, we're certainly looking to them and see what kind of policies they've been implementing. And then to give you a scale, we've got about 75,000 tons of waste and recycled material coming through our program. Here in Zeballos, it would be maybe 600 ton a year. So a small fraction of our overall. Landfills, as you may know, create significant amounts of methane gas, and that methane gas is a greenhouse gas and does have impacts on the environment. At our landfill in Cumberland and our landfill in Campbell River, we have green landfill gas collection systems in place. So those are pipes within the landfill that are pulling the gas, and right now we're flaring that gas to reduce its impact, and we're looking at beneficial use of the gas as we move forward. So that's our significant emissions. We do have some emissions. This is the Campbell River landfill emissions, this large bar, and then this is the Comox Valley fugitive emissions. So those are the ones that escape our collection system, because this graph is before we installed the system in Campbell River. But we do have some smaller fractions related to transportation. And so we have been evaluating the greenhouse gas emissions both from the landfill in Zeballos currently, and then what the emissions would be if we were to transfer the waste out. And it is still less emissions per year transferring the waste out than continuing to keep the landfill there. Just as a point of context for folks, because I know that comes up. This one's really small. It's a bit of an eye test. If you can read it, you can skip your ophthalmologist appointment this year. But it just serves as a reminder, and you've got it in the package, which is a bit easier to read and available online in the agenda. But, we've come from the 3 Rs and, closure of a lot of small local landfills that happened earlier in Sayward and Denman and Hornby, and the transition of those facilities to being transfer stations, recycling depots. And then, curbside recycling becoming ubiquitous in the major municipalities. And then the introduction of a lot of programs that would advance recycling into electronics and paint and packaging now, so there's been a lot happening over the last few decades. And looking forward, where are we going to go? There's a lot of interest in, AI and how that can support us in properly sorting materials. And we're not going to take the lead on that, but, that's one area it could expand. For us, we're looking at things like how do we tackle construction demolition waste? How do we improve recycling in multifamily businesses? And also how do we support organics diversion, beyond the single family residents that we're already working with. So as a reminder on the sphere of influence, because there's some areas where the regional district shines and there's some areas where the municipality does the heavy lifting. Here, the village is not contracting, but conducting themselves the collection, right? Not just from the village, but also from neighboring communities. And that direct connection with residents and with businesses is really important and really helpful to understand waste flows. You're also managing that public area waste collection. You've got a lot of dock users that are not necessarily residents. And then in some cases, building and business permits, but not always every jurisdiction has capacity for that. And then there's a lot coming down the pipeline from federal and provincial governments that we're trying to, anticipate and incorporate what's going to happen. probably the most consequential for us is there's some federal regulations around landfill gas collection that are coming that will have implications on our costs for resourcing that. So mostly staffing and then also just time to repair and, having a lot more attention put on that in the future. So that's coming down and then, some other things that are positive and probably cost saving. So that's kind of the lead up to this plan renewal process, and we've started back in 2022. We've been bringing the board along as we go. We initiated it with a kickoff and a introduction to the public, a request for information about, how the residents felt their existing system was working, and then we looked at goals and guiding principles. And now we're at the evaluate options section here.
Did anybody have any questions before we get into this piece of it? Were there any questions from council? You just have to shout out because I only have the one small box on the bottom. Okay, hearing none. I just had a couple.
Yeah.
So it's been in the solid waste plan for since ever I've been on council to close the Zeballos landfill. And that does keep getting pushed out. And I know that we've talked about our landfill and what that will look like once we have a transfer station. There's all sorts of things to consider, location of that and what that looks like in the long run. But did I hear you say at the beginning of the presentation on page 3 that when upon the Zeballos landfill closure, that the village will be paying $155 a ton for tipping?
Yeah, so the facility itself will be funded, the construction of it will be funded by the large service area, not just the residents of Zeballos, but everyone. The transportation of that material from that facility to the landfill in Cumberland will be also funded by everyone.
Okay.
So just like with every other user of the landfill, the waste tip fee will be paid for by the generators of the waste.
Okay.
So how we determine what quantity of the waste is the responsibility of the village versus the responsibility of other users of the transfer station, that will have to be a part of it to make sure that you guys aren't burdened with outside sources of waste.
Well, yeah, and I'm also worried because I know that organics make up the heaviest pieces of that, and so when we're talking about when we're talking about solid waste going across a scale in Campbell River and then us being charged back for that, it scares me a little bit with the capacity of the taxpayer to pay that. And I know that it's a mainly subsidized service. I understand that and thankful for that we are part of a much larger service area and can have some of the benefits of that. But I do also anticipate that our costs will go up. And so if there's any preliminary conversations that we can have in order to prepare people as far out as possible that this is the plan, this is what's happening, and keep us really informed about that actual closure date. And you have to monitor, the other question I had was you have to monitor that landfill for how many years?
Yeah, the post-closure period is, prescribed at sort of 30 years,
Okay.
but it will depend if we get, say, what we see here is because of the significant amounts of rainfall,
Yes.
dilution can be the solution to pollution sometimes. And so the groundwater quality, also because of the rainfall, but also the insignificant relative amounts of waste that are there, is that we don't see tremendous amounts of impacts from the landfills here.
Okay.
Compared to some of our larger composites of historical waste. So, it may be that 10 or 15 years down the road, our consultants can say safely to the province, this is no longer a concern, and we can reduce the monitoring or eliminate them.
And of course, I'm assuming that you were in conversations with the Haudenosaunee First Nation, as this is not our territory. This is not the territory that we have historically been on as they have for thousands of years. And so I know that they have done a lot of work with their monitoring of watersheds, of the library of community. And then I'm assuming that you're in really good contact with them.
Yeah, we've been, we'll touch on it a little bit later, but we've had some early conversations with the staff here, with Pete, as well as with the nations in terms of trying to have preliminary conversations around planning for the new facility.
Perfect.
So we're starting down that.
Okay. And I think that was, I'm always also interested in, emissions related to trucking transportation stations and transferring, large amounts of solid waste that is mainly organics. Again, 80% of a, load on, maybe that's wrong. That might be old news because I haven't been on the board in quite some time, but I know there was a lot of, organics that were still being put into the waste stream. And so I worry about that, with the backhauling, and the emissions going either way and up and down that island highway, what that kind of looks like. So thank you for bringing this presentation here, because it again renews my excitement for solid waste, if that's a thing.
You don't have to convince me. I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've got a slide in here too about that percent of organics, but
Perfect.
I think we've, looked at some small scale organic solutions in Texas and on Quadra as well. So that's something that we could look to transition, that maybe there's a place that people could bring organics and separate it at that facility and try and manage a small scale something there. Yeah, for those willing to make that effort.
And I also know like education is key, right? So the more that we can push that, because I think that will bring the costs down, is my hope anyways. As long as we're, getting that out of the waste stream, then those things won't be in our waste stream to haul up and down the island highway. So
Yeah, as a ballpark, that 551 kilograms per person.
Yeah.
That's our regional average. So what we do see in the remote communities is that it's a bit higher.
Mhm.
Also, our data isn't as good because we don't have a scale. So we're making that estimate based on a survey. So McElhaney, the engineering firm, comes out and they do a survey of the landfill in Zeballos once a year. They figure out how much of the landfill was filled up, and then they calculate the cubic meters and turn that into an estimation of tons, which is always a bit tricky because you don't know how much dirt the contractor used, when they were backfilling, whether there was a significant demolition of a home that, made it look like a big mound. I think one year in Gold River, Tassus, we had like a construction project that the village was doing, and that brought in a bunch of dirt. So look, just to say those are rougher. And so those come between 1 and 2 tons per person when you look at those volumetric averages.
Mhm.
But if you're looking for a ballpark, if it's $155 per ton and each resident is producing somewhere between a half a ton and a ton of waste, then that would be kind of the annual bill would be somewhere between that 155 and sort of whatever half of that is.
Perfect.
That's math. So
Thank you for clarifying that, though. I really appreciate that. And I know there are outsets as well. I mean, when the old school came down is a prime example of a year that was just, no one could have foreseen that happening, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah. Okay, perfect. Does that bring up anything for anybody else on council?
No, it sounds like you covered everything.
Okay, hearing none, feel free to continue on. Thank you.
So
And actually, before we go too much further, I know that we're gonna have to take a we do a resolution now to extend the timing? If I could get a resolution from council to extend the time on the presentation from 10 to be over 10 minutes, because our procedure bylaw only allows it for 10 minutes, and I see that we're already way past that. Or how about I'll make the resolution that the presentation from the Comox Strathcona Waste Management team can extend past the usual 10 minutes from our procedure bylaw.
Second that.
Is that do what you need it to do, Alana? Thank you, Deputy CAO Jenny. All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's carried. Thank you for that little piece of housekeeping.
yeah, thanks for the extra time to share what I say.
Okay.
So we recruited for an advisory committee, and that's made up of members of the public as well as staff from municipalities, and then 2 elected officials, the board chairs of the Waste Management Board. So we had over 40 applicants, which was great, and we selected as much as we could from different backgrounds in geography. We didn't have any applications from Zeballos. So there is not a representative currently. The closest would be Mark Tatchell has participated as the CAO of TASIS, and he obviously does a great job of representing, the challenging economics and the quirks of small communities. But we definitely, still have a seat open and would welcome if there's a community member. We do pay for travel and participation in meetings. And so we've got, as I mentioned, a survey of experience. We had about 1,100 folks respond. That was all online. And, generally we just saw a lot of desire for improved facilities and increasing convenience as much as possible. So step 2 was last year. That was our plan direction. So we had 6 goals and 8 guiding principles that came out of that. As you can see, they're fairly high level. They're in some cases aspirational, in some cases a little more achievable. And then as we move through our strategies, we'll get down to some goals, some sort of measurable targets. But this is intending to set the direction. So, the foundation of what we're choosing to do and is in goal of achieving these sort of lofty targets that we've set ourselves with our goals and guiding principles. And you can learn more about them on our Engage page, as we just, too much to say in such a short time.
And it's a great page. I actually have been on there trying to keep up a little bit and just glancing every once in a while, and organized very well. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's good information.
Yeah. So we were out in every community last summer. Here in Zeballos, there wasn't one that we could overlap with that worked well for our educator who was going to different community events. So she ended up doing door knocking instead and just went door to door and chatted with folks. And so that's why I asked earlier about the sort of, drop off of papers and timing wise. So it's good to know that, that could be something too. So she managed to speak with 22 residents, and some of the key actions that were to be considered based on that feedback was looking for more education, restore or restore to keep resources within town, more options for the hard to manage items, considering curbside collection of recycling and incentivizing, not incentivizing illegal to
Let me,
disincentivizing.
Psst.
And then for compost, there was 1 for and 1 against. So one was looking for options for fish waste composting, that peak fishing season, and then someone else suggesting that they were happy with what they were doing at home and they didn't feel that a community composting solution was necessary. So this one kind of gets to that future plan for the ballast. This over cares about that. So just looking at current operating expenses, the service contributes about $96,000 a year for the landfill and recycling depot and hauling of materials out of here. And then we have the future dates there for 27, 28 for the design and construction of the transfer station, which would precede the landfill closure, design and construction, 28, 29. And that's right now, high level estimate about $3 million investment to do that work. And, inflation, that cost will continue to go up. It's rare that, anything gets cheaper over time. And the main drivers behind us closing the landfill are going back to those regulations that were implemented in 2016, that the province asks us to have, lined landfills with leachate management, which is the water that touches the garbage and then has to be treated. So to contrast the landfill here, which is unlined and the water just moves through the garbage, where our landfill in Cumberland has a liner underneath it, and we capture that. We put it through a wastewater treatment plant, and then we re-infiltrate that water back into the ground after it's been tested. So that's kind of the new norm, and the province is having us work towards that. And it'd be very difficult for us to implement a solution like that here with significant amounts of rainfall in an economic way. So mentioned earlier, the community to community meetings that we've had. So earlier in the year with Asley Millwood, who's the First Nations liaison with Strathcona Regional District. She and I were coordinating these meetings with staff and some of the more senior members within the nations, depending on who they want to participate, and just polling them on sort of, what they're seeing and what they see with the challenges. So the road condition, limiting access for hauling, and not wanting to see more heavy trucks and deteriorating the road for residents, where that new facility might go. The ability to have reliable staff locally to run that facility. And then asking for increased education and what would the hours of operation be to avoid that illegal dumping. So we did receive funding to have a community meeting between everyone, but we just couldn't nail down a time in summer. So we're looking for times in the spring, as is going to be meeting. That funding came through a government I'm not going to remember now, but it supports for First Nations. So Hadasset was kind of first on the letterhead there. So she's meeting with them tomorrow to try and get some dates pulled together that will then run through everyone, and hopefully we can find a time to host a dinner and have a conversation about where that new facility might go. Hadasset has suggested that it could potentially be located on their land. So that's an area that we're exploring. So just for context, taxation and tip fees, again, because Zeballos isn't paying tip fees currently at the Campbell River or Comox facilities, it's $0 of the $10.4 million that we collect in tip fees. And then the requisition value of the $5 million, we get about $1,900 from Zeballos residents. So your $1,900 is getting $95,000 in service, and you're winning, definitely. And that, of course, doesn't, reflect the population that includes the First Nations communities. So as you guys know, that's significantly higher. So where we are right now, strategies and options, we've been looking at a long list of strategies, meeting with that advisory group. They've been awesome. 6 to 8 meetings a year, coming together and really having 3-4 hour long meetings about garbage and recycling. And that's very kind of them to sit through that, and then giving us good feedback, on what ideas are good or not. So we're going to be bringing those ideas to the public next summer as a short list, but working with the advisory and with our board this fall and winter to narrow that long list down to a short list. So we have a roundtable in October and then another meeting in November. So yeah, so there's a lot happening there, and we're looking to, knowing that that's the main issue for Zeballos folks, looking to focus on location. So this is that waste composition study from 2017. And we're going to be conducting another one this year, and we're just trying to figure out, because the Zeballos waste doesn't leave here, it's difficult for us to pick through it. So we'll have to see, maybe we'll do something a little less formal, or maybe a colleague and I will just come look through your garbage, take some photos. Really what we try and do is, that's the process. We hire a contractor, they open up a bunch of garbage bags and they assess, they sort it by hand. It's a dirty job and someone does it, and then they weigh it all and they put it into like 50 different categories. And this is kind of a summary. So what they found in 2017 was the food waste and yard waste component was about 25%. You could add in tissue toweling, which is also compostable. So it's about 30% compostable there. And then about 16% was recyclable packaging and paper. So the things that you could take to your depot now. And then lots of construction renovation material. This is the non-recyclable components really, but the hazardous waste should have been out of there as well. Home furnishings and textiles, depending on where they are at their life, they may have been able to be repaired or, repurposed. But yeah, really the formal waste component is quite small, at only about 20%. So we're going to look and see whether we've made any big changes as we've implemented since this happened. Food waste is different at Cordy and Cat Workers. We can see some shifts. So just coming up, we're going to evaluate the options this year, next year, and then we hope to submit the plan in early 2026 is our goal for finishing this darn thing.
Do you have and you'll have a public consultation period before you submit the plan to environment.
Yeah, so it'll be consultation next summer on the strategies and the list of strategies, and that's like the bulk of the report. And then there'll be a draft report that we'll consult on, later that year.
Okay.
By that point, everyone will have seen and heard everything, so hopefully nothing should be a surprise. And I will mention, we've been consulting with First Nations as well throughout this process. separately. And so, they've all been extended an invitation to participate in that advisory group. And we've had Michelet come to the table a few times, which has been great. And then we're meeting with them as much as we can, and they have the capacity to support. So.
Council, questions? Not hearing.
Yeah,
Oh, Councillor Lewis, yeah, please.
sorry, I've been between the dog and the mic. Any thoughts at this time or a number of thoughts on where the transfer station might possibly be located?
Yeah, the only location that's been discussed so far, and we're definitely no means zeroing in on it. We're here to hear if there's other suggestions from council or members of the public. And this is not the only opportunity, but the adjacent to the Hattissat Chinnikit office is some land that I think was formerly a logging operation that they understand might not be suitable for housing. And so they feel could be a suitable location for a transfer station.
Will you be looking at the landfill as well as a possible spot for that, as it's kind of in the middle and is that an option to look at?
It's an option. It doesn't feel super convenient for the majority of the population, right? So if the bulk of the folks are between Hattis and the village of Zeballos, and that's not a direction that they're going, it might make more sense to have it either in the direction towards the highway, or somewhere in close proximity to town. But happy to hear your guys' thoughts about that.
Not seeing anybody jumping. So does that mean that there will be a reduction in hour service? Because what I hear you saying is this is a place for individuals to go and take their own garbage. So does that preclude village pickup?
No, that's
a
right? Decision that the village would make, right?
Yeah.
So that's a service you're providing to the residents at a cost.
Yeah.
Right. And currently, I could be wrong, but your sort of tip fee is incorporated within that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you could choose to fund your own portion of the tip fee that will be charged back to you through that collection fee, if you were to maintain a collection service. Or you could choose to discontinue a collection service altogether and have people pay as they throw, which, changes the convenience level for residents.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
And it definitely changes all of the work that we've done in kind of a barrelware, safe for a safety concern standpoint. That's why we have our barrelware bins, and that's why, that's just the convenience of going to throw it in the bin. So I don't know that it makes a difference for people where they're going, because it's all based out of a bin, being collected by us. It is in the middle for us because we collect from Upaji for heart, there's quite a broad spectrum. So interesting. Great. These are all conversations that I'm sure we will staff will be bringing to us in the format of like a committee of the whole as we process this information and get through that. So thank you for doing that. And also being at our large events that are held in community, I've been to multiple events around that have had exceptional designation of waste streams, and that's so helpful when we're trying to educate people on thinking outside of the box and what are you doing and where are you putting your waste, and that there are maybe some things available for them to participate in those kinds of things. We do have a recycling center. There are at-home compostable things that you can be doing. I know that there are some kind of yard-based bins around, and so just delineation of those things out of the waste stream, as that will also keep our costs down here. The service as a whole's costs down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing anybody waving their hand. you know, with a burning question. So I think we will let the presenters go with our thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. You definitely got our thinking, and thank you for making this presentation where it will be available to the general public, and we can point them to this meeting and also to your a link to your page. I think we can do that. Maybe? Yeah, that would be great.
All your friends.
Perfect.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Does somebody? Oh no, we don't do that anymore. Sorry, I was gonna get somebody to accept the presentation. Thank you so much. Please drive safely.
I will.
All right, moving on to business arising from minutes, council portfolio assignment policy. Do you have anything to add to this report, Sarah?
No, it should all be encompassed in that.
Perfect. So I will open this up to council for questions or comments.
I could make a motion.
Sure.
I'd like
Oh, geez, thank
to move that we adopt the portfolio policy as presented.
Second that?
Perfect. And did you have any questions or comments within that?
Not from here.
No, I didn't have any.
I think that's been gone through.
Perfect. And I just wanted to point out some of the little pieces in here that Deputy Mayor positions will, I mean, we've got another 3 months and then we're gonna have to review those. So be thinking about how that worked. I think that'll probably come up. I'll ask staff to put that on in December, in our December meeting. And that the liaisons should report their discussions and their findings, and that we need to get some reporting done on the various portfolios that we hold. So I'll leave that with us for consideration for next time. Bring anything up for anybody? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, I don't hear. So that's carried. Thank you for that. Next, we have a Forestry Works for BC request for a letter of support. There's some information here. Did you have anything to add to this one?
No, I don't. Just that there's a request for a letter of support within that piece of course.
All right. So I'll put it to council.
I'm on board to support a letter of support.
So would you then make a motion that using the letter of support template example?
Yes,
Right.
I'm fine with that.
A letter of
Move that
support.
move
Go
that
ahead.
we write a letter of support from council using their own template letter.
Second that?
Hey, thank you for that. Any discussion, questions, comments?
Nothing.
I'll put a comment in here that I was at the museum, this is quite a while ago now though, but in the talking points paper in our museum, it says that our annual allowable cut has been cut so much that there currently are 2 loggers in town, and I'm not sure that that's even the case anymore.
Very
Just
true.
put that just as a comment out there. That I do not think we have two people who live in this village who are actually employed loggers anymore. Value added, yes, those kinds of other, other jobs that happen around forestry, yes, absolutely. But I'm not sure that there are any loggers left in this village and we're in the middle of the forest. Kind of an
I think there might
interesting
be one
phenomenon,
that
right?
I think there's one I can think of,
Right?
but that's the
Interesting
only
phenomenon.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, council, for that. I appreciate it. I'm gonna call the question on that motion. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
I'm betting that was a not an opposed. I'm gonna take that as an affirmative from Councilor Denise. And that's carried
Affirmative,
then.
yeah.
It's just the delay here, Councilor Denise. It's all weird and wonky, technical things.
That's fine.
All right, next on our agenda, UBCM. Did you have anything that you wanted to? Oh, okay. So this is the protocol with the First Nations Leadership Council. I put this out there for discussion. Any questions, comments?
I think we can support this.
Is this along, sort of combined with the wishing for First Nations on the UBCM? Or being allowed to go to UBCM?
I'll make a comment first, then I'll ask staff for confirmation.
Okay.
I believe that this goes right along with our resolutions to AVICC this past year that were supported by the membership. Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's.
Yes.
Those are the right words.
Okay, perfect. So do you want us to answer to the affirmative? I take a motion on that.
We can, I think we can, I'll make that motion, sure. That we, pardon me?
That we answer in the affirmative of this ask. That we do
Yes, that
support
we
this initiative.
we email Marlene Wells at UBCM and provide our support with this initiative.
Do I have a seconder?
Second,
Thank you for that. Questions or comments? And just as a sideline, I wanted you to know that on the Monday of UBCM, I will be attending the province-wide community to community forum. So that is where the agenda looks really good. And it's for the people who are there representing Union of BC Indian Chiefs First Nations Summit. There'll be I believe there will be a really good attendance. So just to let you know, in furthering our ask for UBCM to have feedback and membership from that these are the other kind of initiatives that are going on at UBCM to further that so that there is a better representation of all the residents and leaders in the province of BC under UBCF. Just as a sidebar.
perfect.
I do
Yeah.
believe that staff's going to attend as well, so. Okay, I call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is carried. Then requests for suicide prevention supports for Indigenous children. So there's an ask in this one as well. A letter addressed through the British Columbia Minister of Education, Roger Singh, to support the request for ensuring that schools are funded and equipped to provide suicide prevention support, and that they provide an audit of the suicide prevention provided to this one Indigenous young girl. So, to council for consideration.
I think
The-
suicide prevention support should be available at every school for everybody, and would support whatever this person wanted. I'm sure, because this should be something readily available within our system and within every First Nation system too. So it's very sad, and I can feel her grief in this letter, but you know, this should be widespread and available for everybody.
I agree.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that I know that in our district alone, I've seen a lot more supports coming for mental health. And that I think is definitely part of this. And so, yeah, if you wanted us to write a letter, we can do so. I need a motion.
Go ahead, Justin, you're good at it.
Move that we respond to the Donovan family here, and write a letter of support for better suicide prevention access to the children of our communities.
Second that.
Got it? Perfect. Questions, comments? Anything else, anybody else you want to put on here? CC the Donovan family, the minister's email. That's good enough. Do you think we should CC our local school district or no? We'll leave it at the higher level.
Leave it to what they asked for.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. Zeballos Volunteer Fire Department. Do you have any questions about this that staff could forward on? Or comments?
More recruits. Wonderful.
So my sentiments exactly. What about the public works report? Questions or comments they could filter out to our staff?
Nothing there.
Well, I went to have a look at the new dump truck, and they need to put steps on that thing because it's a good thing they got a handle, because I had to try and get in and you have to slide out the seat and drop down. So none of us are overly tall in the public, or none of the department is overly tall. So some side attachments would be a good thing. Steps.
We'll leave staff to cover those, right? With those recommendations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations to the public works staff for that. And also thank you for their fast acting today. Yesterday, today, on our boil water advisory. Yeah, thank them for that from us, if you would, please. Fast action keeps people informed. Okay, thank you for that. And then, the administrative, the CAO report. Did anybody have any questions they wanted to forward on to the CAO?
No,
Nothing here.
everything's, yeah, no, everything's, it's good to see a new face on the front desk.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Lewis. That was the one thing I was going to mention to please forward on to the new hire. Our thanks and welcome to the team at the village office. I know it's been a position that's been unfilled for some time, so. Yay. Go, Miss Smith, Miss Smith. All right, nothing else from anybody. We'll go right on to new business. I asked for this to be put here as it was a resource that was given to me from the CAO. This is just for personal reflection, I think, unless somebody had another purpose for it. Elanina is an extremely well-known parliamentarian. I've heard him speak multiple times. Really knowledgeable, and he's put together this kind of information package for boards and for councils. And I know that when we were talking initiation or not orientation, that everybody had expressed, willingness to learn. And so I thought maybe if this was of interest, a little bit of self-reflection. I don't know if we want this to be, for our collective body, if we want to do it at members. I have definitely done the evaluation of a mayor, and kind of saw where I was in that. And the whole point is learning, right? So I just put this here as a shared resource for our council and for, the public to know that this is how maybe we have these resources to help us in our decision-making here at the table. I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments or anything like that, wanted to further it with anything.
No, I skimmed through it, but it's gonna take a little bit more than the skim to make it stick in the brain.
For sure. And also might be, when we're doing evaluations of our staff and things like that. I just thought it was something that should be here on a public document. As the CAO gave it to me, I asked for some kind of, was there any resource that, could help us do some self-reflection on what we were doing. So that's all.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So we don't need anything on that. We have an in-camera session, so if somebody can make that motion at the bottom of page 2 of 36.
Move that council go in camera under Community Charter Section 91C, Labor Relations or Other Employee Relations, and Section 91A, Personal Information about an identifiable individual who holds, is, or being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or other position appointed by the municipality.
Second.
Fantastic. Questions or comments? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? That is carried unanimously. Now we have a public question period. Public question period, as most of you will know, is about anything that is contained in the agenda. And also we may not have the answers, especially since there was a delegation here tonight that we maybe could ask if they wanted their information publicly shared, but that could definitely be asked of staff afterwards or on another day or anything, that we could get back to them, but I don't know that we have all the answers. Any questions? No, Lorna? Mrs. Welsh?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to say I appreciated the fact that, the suicide prevention thing should be for all children. And I think that's a good policy to have these kids learn this kind of stuff when they're quite young, before they, fall into the trap. And I also got to say that the fire department, I am amazed at the women who have stepped up to become firefighters. I think, yay for the women of Zeballos. You're showing us the way. You're showing everybody the way. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Just a quick note, thank you for Sarah Willie who explained all this. If our normal wastage is 14% and our yard organics being we're in Zeballos, is there a way that we could use the community gardens and have a waste metal container for composing without having to move it? That was a thought.
It's a thought and I'll have to get back to you
Yeah.
on that. I do know there was some information. We did get a presentation quite some time ago from Sky Haynes, I believe it was, and there was we'll have to get back to you on that. Can
Mhm.
you? Perfect. Thank you for that.
I think there was comment to bear, but being that it's fenced and if it was metal, just an idea. The other is regarding the library ink of the printing. I was given back in May the request for the ink, and the response was that we don't have a fund for it. It would cost $102, and there's not a budget for it. That a new printer itself would cost less than the replacement ink. I would just like to comment that after waiting a long time,
Don't think that was on our agenda. I don't think we had library ink as a,
we had a library. And I did purchase and donate $21 for the sake of people getting fisherman licenses printed at the library, just to comment.
okay, I think that again, yeah, I think that's another staff question. I think that we have a member who serves on the library board, but the minutia of the running of the library all falls within staff's purview here at the office. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, folks, for coming. Thank you to the gallery. We had 3 members here this evening, so.
All right.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thanks for
I'll
coming.
go out the door.
We'll need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, thanks. Yep. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, you always do that one, Barb.
All in favor?
You make,
Aye.
Any opposed?
you make me,
Carried.